Good morning, everyone. Jim Larry, Florida, are live, and we're just there. I'm unmuted now. It looks like the hurricane's going to miss us slightly north, so we're just kind of hanging out, waiting to see what happens with that. This is my first official hurricane.
Are you excited, Jim? Are you excited for your first official hurricane?
It was neat to watch the grocery stores last night. It took me, 3 hours to get some extra water and or 2 hours and to fill the gas tank up. All the gas stations run out of gas. Of course, the bread aisle was annihilated. Everyone was fighting over loaves of bread. Not fighting. I will say people were very polite, very, very respectful. Even at the gas stations, I was kind of surprised.
Because there's still a few people around here packing heat,
Yeah, absolutely.
In those places.
Hopefully, this is a good broadcast. I've got my weak. Well, where'd you go? There you are. I got my weak Wi-Fi signal out here, or I'm not on Wi-Fi. I'm wired, but I've got the little weak signal up here. So hopefully, we're not having crazy internet this morning. Hopefully, everyone can hear us well.
Yeah.
We had a really busy day yesterday. We had the morning live. We had Dr. Stillman did a 2:00 on his own labs, which is probably one of the best overall. I haven't seen any doctors going over their own labs. And I watched the whole thing while I was running errands. I don't think I've ever seen anyone do that. I think that'd be a really good thing for you to go watch. Well, I hope you're wrong, Jim, but we'll be ready anyways. He says we're gonna get directly hit, but we'll find out. Thank you, Dave. Appreciate it. Thanks, James. We unfortunately the interview with Chris from EMR Tech, he had a really bad internet connection, so it wasn't very great.
I think his audio pickup was also part of the problem.
I think mostly from what I saw from watching, his internet was freezing and choppy, and so.
Oh, was that it?
Regardless, it was you. You did a great job holding the interview together.
Thanks.
Excellent work. So we had 3, and considering we do these live, we've really only had like one episode that was just like, not ideal, but you did a good job holding it together. So we've got our thyroid course. We got our thyroid course that we've just released. It's still open. We've sold a bunch, but we got room for more. You can use code Jim to get 10% off on that. If you have questions about the thyroid course or any other programs that we have, we are doing a live Q&A tonight at 5:30 Eastern. There's a link below.
Power is still on.
Yeah, the power is still on. Yes, there'll probably be some thundering and lightning and stuff. I might be able to get on it because I have a cellular connection, but I'll have to make sure my laptop's all charged up, but we'll be here for that. Hopefully. Also we just released, I'm going to put the link in the chat. I'm also going to put it in the YouTube. I forgot. You can book a call with Eric. We get all sorts of inquiries for our executive men's program every month. We just don't have the capacity to take everyone in the medical program. So we're creating the same thing without the medical, but we can give you advice, a same high-level coaching program in the coaching side so we can help more people. If you want to learn more about that, just book a call with Eric and he'll basically inform you what that's all about. It's some direct work with me and some group coaching with Dr. Stillman. We'll be able to customize things for you and help you learn how to deal with your doctor.
And the link is in the comments or description, right, Jim?
It's in the comments, and then I'm going to go back and put it in the description. I forgot to put it in the description before on YouTube. So the link is in the comments, and then it will be in the description along with all the other links I mentioned. Dr. Stillman, with this kind of storm coming and all this, the title is The Divide in the Road. Are you ready? There's obviously some things coming in the future. I think that most of us that are paying attention, that aren't asleep at the switch, that are not wearing a face diaper, see it coming. And I think, you have to have some discernment and wisdom and awareness, you don't want to get overwhelmed with fear, but you've got to be prepared, and you've got to start maybe changing some of the priorities in your life around, so you be prepared for what's coming.
Yes, absolutely. And if I had to pick one mistake that I see people making consistently in life, it's that they allow things that should not be priorities to become priorities. So, classic story for me as a doctor, taking care of busy people in our modern world is that they don't have time to be well. They're very busy being a mother, wife, uh, working a job. If they're a man, being a husband, father, brother, son, etc. And then they're also they have hobbies. They have different things they want to do out there in the world. We have patients who will go travel and they'll spend a lot of time on the go, flying from place to place. And what I see happening is they are chasing all these different things, these shiny objects, and they're not actually focusing on the things they really care about. Very frequently, I'm the first person to have a conversation with them in our consultations about what their actual goals are in life. Because I've found that the secret to really taking great care of people is to actually have that conversation and say, what do you want? What is important to you in the coming years and decades? Because they don't ever think about that long-term planning as far as their health. And they have no one in their life who is in a position to say to them, or who sometimes has the guts to say to them, hey, listen, the way that you're living and the way that your labs look, you need to make a radical change in order to be able to cope with whatever life throws at you. Because the thing about disaster is that it comes out of nowhere, right? Like 4 or 5 days ago, we didn't even know there was going to be a hurricane today or tomorrow. We still don't know where it's going to land. And I was driving back from my morning walk this morning. I went down to the beach to check it out. I wanted to see what the water was doing because it's just part of my morning routine. And I thought, I probably should have bought some bread. But my lease is about to be up here, and I didn't want to stock a bunch of. I usually have these shrink wrap loaves of bread from Germany that are really good. This dark rye pumpernickel and multigrain bread that I just love for grilled cheese. Jim's laughing at me. And I'm thinking to myself, I don't have any bread. I'm not going to be able to make any hurricane sandwiches. And I realized that I probably should have thought through this a little bit more before the hurricane, but I was busy. I got distracted, right? And this is exactly what I see happening to my patients. Now I'm not worried about myself. I have lots of food.
I did all the running around for you.
You did, yeah. I've got lots of food. There's lots of, we have what we need to get through any kind of storm, water.
We have a whole swimming pool full of water. That's the nice thing about the swimming pool. I mean, if things got really bad, we've got a whole swimming pool full of water. So,
yeah. And, back to this topic of disaster preparedness, people are just not ready, right? And they think that they've got time to get ready. They've got time to continue to work on their business at the expense of their health. They've got time to continue to, chase some kind of career goal or some kind of goal with their hobbies. We'll have people coming to us who are high-level athletes, and they're really focused on some kind of athletic event or success. And we have to have a real serious conversation with them. Hey, your time at the gym, your time at the track, your time and the way you're exercising is actually really hurting your goals. And oftentimes it's just that they're not compatible. If a woman comes to gym and says, look, I want you to train me. I want to have, a lean physique and not have a lot of what's the word I'm looking for? Body fat.
Body fat. You want six pack abs, and you're
that's how I want to look. But in a couple of years, I want to have a kid. Jim's going to say, look, these are not really compatible goals. Women need adipose tissue in order to be fertile. So you're asking me to do two opposite things. And
plus throw a really high stress career in there as well. That long hours,
right?
Night shifts. I mean, that's just not It's just not the outcomes of that. The probability of there being a good outcome is very low in that situation. So,
And the reality
but
is that we see people mostly running at like 100% capacity,
mhm,
particularly in our high performers, our CEOs, our C-suite executives,
yeah,
our business owners, our very busy stay-at-home moms. And you cannot live your life at 100%. You
mhm,
really, at most, should be living it at 80% because something's
yeah.
going to happen. And you're going to need that 20% for something else. You're going to need it to take care of your mom. You're going to need it to take
Still
care of your dad.
training. Most of
What's
your
that, Jim?
training, most of your training is going to be between 65 and 85% most of the time. You only go to 100, 105% once in a while, but most people are maxed out, so there's going to be a lot of need for simplification, for downgrading, maybe simplifying. I think we've had it so well in the United States for so long. I mean, I was listening to somebody the other day was talking about Americans are just putting everything on their credit card now. They have like, you know, the largest credit card debt in history, essentially. I was listening to a guy talk the other day. They said that combined, like the U.S. debt, if divided amongst the population of the earth, is almost $4,000 a person.
It's insane.
So, like, I'm not trying to be a fear mongerer, or I'm not trying to but the reality is things are going to radically change. If it's not in the
Mm,
next few months, in the next couple years, this Ponzi scheme cannot go on forever.
right.
So you need to take a sober look. You need to be as healthy as you possibly can so you can remain calm, be prepared for the worst, hope for the best. But if you run the numbers and if you look at it, there's going to be some drastic changes. And are you ready to, one, take ownership of yourself, have sovereignty? Because there's a clear divide coming between you, the individual, taking responsibility for yourself, your health, and your family, and the powers that be telling you what to do. And guess what? Those powers that be don't have your best interests at heart if you've been paying any attention in the last 50 years, maybe even beyond
Yeah,
that.
and this goes back to what you're spending your time and your money on, because the reality that we see over and over again is that people living at 100%, when something happens, a heart attack, a natural disaster, an illness in the family, the death of a loved one, all things that are going to happen, they never happen when you expect them to happen. They
Right,
never happen when you expect them to happen. So if you're
right.
living at 100% right now and you're listening to this and you're thinking, "Oh, I'm just going to take another week, another month, another quarter, another year, another whatever." And we'll watch people, quite frankly, wash out of our coaching programs who are just, they don't want to do the work. And we look at them and we just say, this is a dumpster fire that is headed for an inferno. This
Well, they
person is
don't want
going to
to.
come back to us.
Don't want to be more efficient, and they don't want to. They don't want to take a look at themselves. A lot of people will refuse. The reason they're so wired is that's the only way they know how to function, and they're not willing to
Sure.
slow down enough. When you slow down, you have to deal with yourself and you have to deal with reality. And
Right.
most people today do not have a good relationship with themselves, and they can't sit quietly. And that constant one, people are levered to the max. They've got houses and car payments and all the things, right? So they
But I
have
would
no
say not
choice.
just
A lot of
financially that
people
are
are
they
living way
leveraged
beyond
up.
their means.
Yeah, I don't think they're
Well,
just
they're
financially
leveraged on all
leveraged up.
fronts.
Yeah, exactly. Emotionally, psychologically,
Their health, their
energetically,
wellness.
nutritionally.
I mean, all the things. I mean, people are running, like, I think beyond 100% today with inflation and all these things and the amount of stress that
Yeah,
people are under and the fear porn. So people are
yeah,
running like 105 on the reactor. If you watch Star Trek,
yes.
it'd be like, give me 105 on the reactor. Like, she can't take it, Captain. She can't do it. I don't know if you watch Star Trek, the old Star Trek with what's his face? Who's the Captain Kirk? Who's the original Captain Kirk? Somebody in the
William
comments, let me
Shatner.
know. William Shatner. That's right. I should know that. He lives in
Yeah.
Kentucky. He's a horse guy. So
And the other thing about this is that we see people relying on things that are fleeting
yeah.
and not taking the time for their wellness. And they're thinking, oh, well, I've got to have this or that or the other thing, or I've got to do this or that or the other thing. And my response to that is, you are out of your mind if you think that anything is more important than your health. Every first
That is
responder,
correct.
every person who knows about disaster preparedness and response knows you put your own oxygen mask on first, and you make sure that the rescuers are safe, because if the rescuers eventually need rescuing because they get overextended, there's no one to rescue the rescuers, and everybody buys the farm. So you have to be living life at a reasonable percentage of your capacity. You have to be taking time for yourself. You have to be relaxing. You have to be in the physical shape you want to be, because the other thing about, whatever happens with the value of things, whether it's the value of the dollar or the value of real estate, all these things that people spend a lot of their time researching, thinking about, putting their money into and counting on, is all of that can change on a dime. But you can also walk away from all of it. And you cannot walk away from your health. And so we'll have people coming to us who they got all the money and all the resources and assets they could ask for in the world. That's not their problem. But they're trying to put the horse back in the barn as far as their health problems go, and they don't know how to do it. And a lot of the time, they're very frustrated by the fact that they can't just throw money at that problem and make it go away. A lot of the time, it takes choices that are much more difficult than just cutting a check or swiping a credit card. So people need to really live within their means, with a very broad sense. You need to live within your means financially, energetically, nutritionally. You need to be, and this is why I do labs, because the labs keep people sober. It's why I look at vital signs, and why we look at HRV, and why we look
And
at
the
sleep
ring.
readiness scores, because we help people understand where they are. Because if there's one thing we see in high achievers, it's that they don't have a good internal barometer of their stress level and how much gas they have left in the tank. They think they can keep going indefinitely at 100 miles an hour, and then they wonder why they get wrapped around a tree and have to call, Jim Laird and Dr. Stillman's Wellness Towing and Recovery, service.
Well, and that's one of the reasons why they're ultra successful, right? Is because they have that high
right.
drive, right? So the matter, it's not a matter of like, we don't want you to work hard. I think that's a
No, not at
misunderstanding
all.
that people get. They just need to be a little smarter about it as far as their rest, rest a little bit so you can keep going hard. It's just people, once they get caught in that loop, they just don't know how to slow down,
And we had a gentleman yesterday we were talking this about, and he said, look, I remember, waking up every day when I was young, and every day was great. And I just said, look, this is part of getting old, and you got to decide, what are you going to spend your time on? Because the days of you being able to run a company at 100 miles an hour and live your social life at 100 miles an hour and go into the gym and do a heavy beatdown workout 4 times a week and recover and build muscle while you're not sleeping enough or eating enough protein are gone. And that's just a
and
matter
have
of
a
fact.
I mean, it just stacks right up. And as you get older, you start getting into your 50s and 60s, you just can't roll and push like you used to, right?
That's
I mean,
right.
I notice it. I'm almost 50 years old, and I have to be a lot smarter about how I approach things. I can't get away with the shenanigans that I used to get away with when I was in my 20s. And a lot of people they don't want to accept that, right? So
You just love that word.
shenanigans, I love it. It's a great word. It's one of my favorite.
So, yeah. And this also goes into something that's really important, and that's navigating different phases of life. I didn't think I would end up talking about things like that as a doctor, but what I realized was that the greatest regrets my patients have and will have actually have nothing to do with their businesses, their net worth, whether they can buy or afford organic food at the grocery store or not. All these things that Jim and I talk about a lot of the time, we're really not talking about them for their own sake. We're talking about them for the sake of, are their relationships what they want them to be? And that goes back to phases of life. Those relationships change, right? And how you relate to people changes.
Mhm.
And you got to be willing to say, I am not going to go out there and focus on, say, building a business at a certain stage in life or after a certain stage in life, because A, my health won't sustain it. And B, what really matters to me at the end of the day is, for example, mentoring my children or my extended family or creating some kind of legacy. And I see a lot of people missing the boat on that, and they don't understand that they need to change their priorities. They no longer need or even want deep down to be boss babe, the go-getter, the hustler, they really should be stepping aside or stepping back and taking more of a mentorship role and creating a legacy and making sure that the things they've built and created are running well and doing well. We see people who are, their real health problems in some cases come down to the stress of their kids being off the rails, whether they've got health problems themselves or they've got psychological issues or they're just not succeeding in life. And they often, they come back and they say, well, I really wished I'd spent more time with my family, or I really wish I'd spent, more time or been more emotionally available for my, my kids or my wife. And that's something that we actually coach people through, because we've seen so many relationships derail people's health. It actually becomes a critical part of what we do.
Well, and furthermore, what was I going to say? I'm spacing out now. But
Okay.
that's why you restructured your entire business, right? Because you didn't want to do 6 to 8 hours a day of one-on-one calls, right? You wanted to help more people. You wanted to be more efficient. You wanted to create products and have things at different price points, right? You restructure, and this is stuff we struggle with all the time. Like, we literally have to schedule things into our schedules so we don't get overwhelmed and we do too much. Like, both of us, we take little breaks during the day. Like, this is not stuff we're just basically, telling everyone to do. And basically we're preaching from this high pulpit. We struggle with the same stuff. And the reason that I'm so adamant about this is because I've destroyed my health on numerous occasions. You have to be really careful that you don't overbook yourself. You have a tendency to do that. So we've put things in place so that you don't. And it's a conscious choice. And it's so much harder to basically have the discipline to get the sleep, to do the self-care, to do all these things. That takes a lot more discipline than just putting your head down and running into the wall again, right? That's mindless. You can just keep smashing over and over. But having the ability to, like, eat high quality food, organize your schedule, take care of yourself. And a lot of that comes down to, do people actually love themselves and have a good relationship with themselves? And that's where you get into, like, the really, deep emotional trauma stuff, where you've got people that don't have a great relationship with themselves and they're abusing themselves.
That's why we coach people through, well, do you need neurofeedback? Do you need EMDR? Or do you need to focus on, because a lot of this comes down to nutrition, total toxic load, things like sauna, time outside. We coach people into these habits that they need to have, depending on what's going on with them. And that's the value of coaching. And that's why,
go ahead. Sorry.
That's why, as you were saying, I changed how I was doing things, brought, you on board. We now do largely group coaching, in large part because we've both seen that people hear what we say, you need to slow down, you need to take time for yourself, you need to relax, but they often don't implement well. And when we do the labs in the medical practice,
go ahead. Yeah. I'm sorry.
When we do the labs in the medical practice, we often see, they're very run down in terms of their nutrient stores, or they're very inflamed. And we say, look, a lot of this isn't a magical pill. It's a lifestyle change you're going to need to make in order to get these labs under control. And I hammered that home, I think, pretty well when I went over my labs yesterday in the YouTube or the live I did. And that's part of why I did that. I wanted to show people, look, when you're consistent, some labs are consistent, but you have to be totally consistent. And even then, a lot of your labs are all over the place. So if you're not consistent and none of the labs are consistent, you might as well flush that money down the toilet.
Well, and here's the thing too. Most people don't change right away.
I know it. Right.
2, 3, 4 months sometimes for people to hear, like, hey, like, stress is your number one issue. What do you mean I'm not stressed? You look at the data, you look at their labs. And finally, after weeks and months of me, I remember you telling me after a couple of the first group coaching calls we did, they're like, man, you just keep hammering this thing over and over again. And sure enough, you're beating this like a dead mule. And I'm like, just wait, you'll see. Sure enough, 3 or 4 months later, they come on the call and they go, I finally realized that some of the relationships in my life and some of the stress that I'm under and how I've been dealing with that stress is the root cause of my problem. And I'm now going to take stress management seriously. And then all of a sudden they start seeing results. But that's the thing. Like, instead of going and if I see something that's an actual root cause of something, I am going to beat on that drum. And you can go back and listen to all my old podcasts of my most successful clients. You know, they would say, he said the same thing to me over and over and over and over again. And finally, one day I was like, maybe I'll try it. And then they actually tried it and it worked. It's just like Stan Efferding said the other day when I reviewed him. He's like, I say the same things. People make fun of me because I say the same things on every podcast. And people were complaining in the comments, Stan never has any new information. And he's like, that's because this stuff works, but nobody complies. Nobody actually implements it. Even the high-level athletes struggle with these things.
Yep. On that note, Jim, I think we should wrap it up.
Yes. You guys have yourself a great day. If you're in Florida, I wish you safety.
Plugs. I gotta plug the stuff.
I'm getting there. I'm getting there. I'm getting there.
Just making sure.
We got all the links below. There's links in the comments. We've got the thyroid course. You can use code Jim all caps or Stillman all caps for 10% off. That's actually for all of our courses, all of our programs. If you use one of those codes, you'll get 10% off. We have the call with Eric if you want to get into the executive men's coaching program, optimal male vitality coaching program. We'll be able to help you get some one-on-one time with me, get group coaching. We're going to make sure to get everything dialed in for you and get you going in the right direction as quick as possible. And then we got our Q&A tonight. There's a link to the YouTube where that's going to show up. You can set the reminder for that. And if this is after, you can watch that video and learn all about these things. What happens is we basically run these courses, and we're about to put up a couple more, but what's going to happen is we're going to roll these courses out throughout the year and do the live coaching. You'll be able to buy the course after, even if we're not doing the live coaching. But what'll happen is you'll get put on a wait list, and whoever signs up for the most amount of courses will re-release that course. And then we'll apply what you've paid for the course. We'll discount that off the coaching. So that's basically how we're going to decide what courses if everybody wants to do thyroid constantly, if everyone wants to do whatever course it is, whichever courses get the most attention, the most opt-ins for the waiting list. And that sense, we will basically roll those courses out more than the rest. So that's basically how we're going to run things. And obviously we have our fundamentals of wellness with coaching, which we sell constantly. So
we do.
And you can always follow Dr. Stillman on Substack. Have a great day.
Yeah.
Get outside unless it's really windy, then stay inside. Have a good day.